Welcome to video review number 2, Tiny Toon Adventures Buster Bust Loose for the SNES. This is a game that I rented back in the early 90s and I bought in the late 90s. I've always liked this game because I was a huge fan of Tiny Toons back in the day. The story of this game is just like an episode of the show. The player follows the crew through a series of comic misadventures. The motifs are based off the basics of TV and movies, westerns, haunted houses, science fiction, with a little bit of football, and don't forget the hot air balloons. The script is split into 6 levels. The objective of each stage is to either run to the end or beat a boss. The full story is available only on challenge mode, as well as the ending that isn't just the credits against a black screen. What I personally like about the story is how it tips its hat to the movies that were very popular at the time, like Star Wars and Back to the Future. Star Wars, or the space opera, is the last stage, and Back to the Future is alluded to at the end of the western level. It's a shame that the story couldn't have been told with voice acting, because the cast of Tiny Toons just made that show come to life. Of course, in '93 that really wasn't a possibility. The game is true to its characters, those that are actually in the story. Buster Bunny, Babs Bunny, no relation, Hampton J. Pig, Dizzy Devil, Plucky Duck, Montana Max, and Calamity Coyote, as well as Bookworm, all have dialogue. Arnold, a large white dog based on a certain actor / governor of the same name, also appears in a couple of levels. A lot of the characters were just flat omitted, and a few others like Elmira and Shirley the Loon are restricted only to the minigames. There isn't much dialogue to begin with, but with the dialogue that is used, the basics of the characters are established. Suffice it to say, this game doesn't stray far from what made Tiny Toons great in the story and presentation departments. Graphically, it looks and feels just like the show did all of those years ago. It isn't spot on, but it's close. The colors are great, and the animators did a wonderful job of picking up on some of the subtle things that the characters did in the show. In a second, Plucky is going to grit his teeth at the start of the stage. That is just one example of the animators' work. The backgrounds look nice and cartoony, and have things like axes in the kitchen. There are even some foreground graphics, the most prominent being the candles in the spooky mansion. Even though several people pick the western stage as their least favorite, I think it's my favorite. For today anyway, it edges out Spooky Mansion because I don't like the boss, and the space opera because I don't like the roots near the end of the stage. The western stage has cameos by Wile E. Coyote, an evil Abraham Lincoln, and the second part of the stage is an nod to the train from Back to the Future Part 3. Plus, I think the western stage makes the best use of the theme music. As far as game modes, there isn't much to choose from. There's Start, Password, and Options. As you look at the options screen, you can see that it's pretty self-explanatory. The only things I change are making a dash button, and I change the difficulty to challenge. In the password mode, I think the only ways out are to insert a password or to reset the system. I could be wrong, but I tried every button and I couldn't get out. I actually stumbled on the password for the football level, so there it was, back there. The controls are pretty clean. Use the control pad to move Buster left and right. Press down to duck, and up doesn't do anything. The button scheme can be changed to your liking, so no worries with that. Buster's ability to dash is presented by a meter. You can only dash when there's at least one bar filled. They fill up by running into go-go items or just by not dashing. When you are dashing, press down to attack and to slide under obstacles. When you dash up a wall, use the control pad to choose the direction and push the jump button to jump off, either to the ground or to another wall. Another point about dashing. Push either a dash button or back on the control pad to cancel your dash. Press an attack button to use Buster's drop kick of doom. Again, the controls are pretty good overall, but there are frustrating moments that can cost you a life, like jump dashing over a platform. It doesn't happen too often, and it can be fixed with a bit of practice. Not a lot of items in this game. A see-through carrot will increase your heart gauge. A greenish carrot will restore 1 heart, while a gold one will restore all hearts. Go-Go will increase your dash meter. Transparent Go-Go will wipe out your enemies. Gold one will make you invincible. And you collect 100 stars for an extra life. Another way to get another extra life is to get one of those Buster dolls. The only gameplay mechanics left are just the mini-games. There are 5 total: squash, or one-man tennis starring Furball. Try not to hit Speedy the Roadrunner, otherwise you lose more time. And then we have Junction. It's also known as Hungry Boy Hampton. The objective is to move the tiles so Hampton can eat the apples. Maze. As Babs, you run around Elmira's house, try to save her friends locked inside. That's my favorite game. Next is Bingo, starring Plucky. Don't really need to explain Bingo. And the final game is Seesaw, or the weigh-in game. The goal is to outweigh your opponent. In-game, you will spin the roulette of games and play a minigame randomly after each level. You win extra lives by winning in these games, but you don't have to win in an astounding way. For example, if you just save one person in the maze, that's 1 extra life, and so forth. In the passwords, if you enter Elmira, Shirley, and Calamity, you can play any of the games you want, or you can spin the wheel if that's your thing. The music is mostly just variations on a theme. You will become very cozy with the Tiny Toons Toon by the time you are through with this game. The stages do a good job of incorporating the theme into the motif of the level. It's creepy in the spooky mansion, but fun in the western, and epic in the space opera. It sounds cartoony, but it fits nicely with the rest of the game. The sound effects are also cartoony, but they sound right for Buster and his enemies. The only ones that strike me as odd are these pogo stick rats. They sound like they're making the sound themselves. In terms of problems, the dash can sometimes mess you up, the game is short, and even though I love the music, it's variations on a theme, and it doesn't introduce much new music. Buster Bust Loose is a fun experience while it lasts, and the great 90s nostalgia factor kicks into gear big time with this one. It's especially good for younger players, as it isn't overly difficult. It took me 1 continue on challenge mode my last time through, and that was after I had put the game down for years. The price range I found was less than $1 all the way up to $6. If you're looking for a good game for your child, little brother, sister, cousin that missed out on the greatness that was Tiny Toon Adventures, this is an excellent buy for the price. If you lived through that era and didn't pick it up when it first hit the streets, and you remember Tiny Toons fondly, this game has held up well over the years. It isn't hard, but it's a fun little game. It's definitely the kind of game you could pull out once a year and beat it in less than 2 hours. I am thrilled to give Tiny Toon Adventures Buster Bust Loose for the SNES an 8 out of 10. I decided to score games based on what is and not what could have been. Like I said, it's a short experience, and it doesn't have the greatest replay value in the world, but overall, Buster Bust Loose is a fun experience, and that's what matters the most. That's it for video review number 2. Until next time, later.